Fire Radio.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of The Size Up by National Fire Radio, where what you do off the job matters, and it always matters. And I say that all the time that I'm recording. And we had some internet issues here in the lead up to this, so I'm hoping we can get through this whole episode because Seb will be like, "Oh my God, I have to deal with multiple clips again," and I don't want that to happen with Seb because I like to keep Sebi happy because he makes me look good in these podcasts, or at least sound good is the way that I like to say it. But today is an exciting day. If you listen to last week's episode, I had my little man Dex with me in a quick little episode, but both boys are at school. So I am back to being at like Zen mode peace in my house, doing my thing that I do when the boys aren't here, like work out and record podcasts and do business calls, all the things that the summer kind of threw me off. So I think it's going to take me a little while to get back in the groove. It's definitely going to take Clarice a little while to get back in the groove because unfortunately I had to put her away for the podcast because she was already starting to annoy me in the little pre-show lead up. But whatever, that's enough about me. It's cool to see everybody's back to school pics of their kids too, because you see them grow on social media, which I of course posted my kids because we have one from every year. So they are off enjoying school. I am here back with you, and I have an amazing guest today. And so it's a little known secret. Maybe I've said it before, but I send out a pre-show questionnaire before every podcast just to get to know the folks, like my guest today, who I honestly don't know until I saw her on social media. A friend posted something amazing that she did, and I'm like, you need to come on this show. And it's a really small questionnaire, gives me a little bit of base. And one of the things that I ask is, what do you want to talk about on the show? Like, what do you want to focus on? Because I don't know, it could be totally different from what I focus on. And you guys know who listen. Sometimes we don't even talk about the things I wanted to focus on. And my guest today's answer, it started out with kind of like the word extreme. And yes, she does do some extreme things, but she also provided an extreme answer because normally I get like a sentence or two. Like, I would like to talk about this. And it's like, A. Well, I got a 6-paragraph response to what do you want to talk about today on your first ever podcast. And you talk about extreme. I mean, it was grammatically correct. It was formatted correctly. There's so much to talk about today. I don't even know if we could squeeze my guest in this 1 hour episode. It may be like a 3 or 4-parter because I feel like she's one of the most extreme people I know. So Shannon, how are you today? Welcome to the Size Up.
I'm good. How are you? Thank you for having me.
Are you really that extreme in life that you described?
I'm very impulsive, so yes.
I can tell and it was a great answer. And it seems like, you do it all to extreme. Like, why have one kid when you can have two at the same time, right?
Exactly. And my kids are also in school, so that gives me more time to focus on the things that I want to do as well, like training or whatnot, even relaxing. So yeah, it's nice to have them back in school too.
So do you have parent guilt though when you think about that? Like when you want to push them off to someone else to be like, you go learn over there so I have more me time? Because I get a little parent guilt. I'm not going to lie.
Sometimes, but most of the time I'm okay with it. I have more guilt when my parents are watching my kids or my in-laws are taking them, but for them being in school and doing their activities and being with their friends, I think they're just as happy as I am.
Now, how old are your twins, if you don't mind me asking?
They are 6 years old, and I have a boy and a girl.
Oh, wow. So you got it all done. One shot to the extreme right there, right?
Yes, exactly.
See, I'm like a little bit of the opposite of you because when my in-laws or my parents watched the boys, especially when they were younger, I was like, this is grandma and poppy time. Like, This is, you go. Like, you can spoil them. You could get McDonald's and do. My son just reminded me that the first time he had McDonald's, he was with my in-laws, and my wife, like, lost it on her mom.
Yeah, my in-laws, they're the ones that really spoil our kids, take them shopping and take them to all the fun places. We do the same, but they get really spoiled over there. My parents actually live with us. We built our house to include them because both my husband and I work 24-hour shifts at the same time. So we have built-in 24-hour care. So it works out really well.
That is a win right there, right?
Yes.
When you're able to do that, especially when you work the types of careers that we work, and clearly your husband works as well, which I didn't know.
Yes.
But that's such a big thing, right? Is that need of care, and especially when my boys were both younger, I mean, we needed it way more. Now they're my older son is in high school, so it's kind of like, okay, you can. They just did their first, like, mom and dad both had to work day. So my wife works, not a traditional schedule, but a normal, like, Monday to Thursday type 10-hour shift thing, and I was on duty, so they did, like, my mother-in-law came over and took them to lunch, but, like, they did a big day. But when they're
Yeah.
little like that, needing that care is such an important thing.
Absolutely, and it's been a phenomenal help having my parents be so involved, because not everyone is as lucky as we are to have that kind of support system, which is also one of the reasons why I can do the extreme things that I do.
Oh, for sure. I mean,
Yes.
that's right there. But, you know, and again, we talk about things that we're not going to we don't plan on talking about. And I never asked you if you really wanted to talk about this, because I didn't know that that's what your husband did. I know in your paragraphs you wrote that he was deployed at one point, but he's a firefighter as well. And
Yes, he's a firefighter, and he's also in the Army Reserves. So we're actually getting ready to prepare for our next deployment. It'll be his last deployment with us, and he'll retire, I think, around 2026. So we're excited that one, it's going to be the last deployment, but he has been managing the two careers, so both take time away from us.
I love the way, though, and this is exactly where I was going with this, that you said our deployment. You used words like our and we in the preparation. And having a spouse, in the emergency service as well, in the military, it's not always easy on the other half. And when you're both doing it, I think it would probably be even harder in my mind. Like, it's not easy to be like, hey, let me marry another firefighter who works a 24-hour shift. Um, it, did you work hard to get them on the same day? I guess is my question, or does that just happen?
It was just happenstance on the same shift anyway. So that worked out well. And a lot of, there are other couples in the department, and some of them decide to go on different shifts. And for us, that seemed like it would actually be a harder way to manage our lifestyle. So being on the same shift works out really well for us. We can spend our time with our kids at the same time, and we're always
Yeah.
together. But our support system allows for that too. So that's one of the discussions we had with our parents. But like, hey, can you help us when we're gone for 24 hours at a time? So
And that's such a big part. And I find like a lot of my episodes are coming back to this, and maybe because it is like I'm the old salty guy at the firehouse, right? Like the other day I worked a swap, and I had this is really sad to say in my mind. I had 4 times the amount of time on the job than the 3 kids I was working with all put together, type of a thing, right?
yeah, yeah.
And it happens, but I'm thinking more about this. And when people ask me about the job, we just went through our application process here in the state of New Jersey, and I've been getting a lot of personal questions from both applicants and applicants' parents as well, wanting them to apply for a job somewhere, because we do a statewide test. And a lot of the things are like, you have to think about this if you're already married, if you have kids, if you're serious with someone, to explain this part of the lifestyle. Like, you can't
Oh, yeah.
just be like, oh no, I'll be gone and it'll be fine. There's so much more to it. And I'm sure you've had more problems than I did, I feel like, in a way.
Yes, but like my parents are very flexible. So there are times where I called them, like our Friday, Sunday shift. I ended up getting a 24 Mando on Saturday. And it was when Preston was deployed as well. So like I was gone for 3 days straight. Like, sorry, mom, I'm not coming home. Hope you're okay with that. And they're like, yeah, we're good. So having that, and that's very last minute. I'm like, at 8:01 when I'm getting off work, they're like, hey, you're staying. So it's like, hey,
Oh
I'm
my
not
God.
coming home.
Hello,
So
hello, favorite daughter. Like,
yeah.
hello, you're the favorite to get literally. But right, that's a huge thing, especially like looking on the internet. And again, I found you on Instagram, and we'll get into that in a minute. But when you see where I am, the way we work, my department, very fortunate, very little mandatory, if ever mandatory, stays. It's just the way our
Yeah.
shift works, the way my department is set up. But I know nationally, and even people in New Jersey are getting mandated to stay once a week. And if you're in a situation where your husband's deployed, your spouse is deployed, you are getting mandated, and then you're going into that 72-hour shift, you
It's a
have to
lot.
have something set up. Yeah. And you have
Yeah.
to be honest with your folks, and your child care setup, that this may occur.
Yeah, and luckily for me, the Mando doesn't happen that often. But one of the things that I do like about our department is they put us in a group, and so I know I'm Group 5C. and they have that date set for the whole calendar year. So I go on my calendar on my phone. I said, all right, this is possible mandatory day. So I know not to plan anything important. So I could be working, I could not. There are times where it's like, oh, this wasn't even my day, but hey, I had to stay. That doesn't happen very often. So I think I count ourselves pretty fortunate that it's not a once a week thing. It's maybe once every 2 months, 3 months thing for me that I'm getting hit for Mando. So I can pretty much plan for it, but sometimes you have that outlier that's like, hey, you're staying.
Yeah, and listen, that's one of the things, and I don't mind saying, again, it could be the old salty meat. That's the sucky thing about this career path that you choose, right? I mean, there
Yeah.
could be, whether it's a mandatory, whether you're like my department does mutual aid, we could be on a mutual aid assignment in someone else's town, and you're not leaving at 8 o'clock when you were supposed to. And there were
Yeah,
days
exactly.
where, I was supposed to bring the boys to school, but my wife had to go in late that day. Her job has been very understanding, anybody she worked for. But when you look at like the failure rate of marriage amongst all emergency services personnel or shift workers, I feel like a lot of it is not having that prepared understanding. And maybe that's a good way to put it. Like you're fortunate that, and you had planned, we're going to have them live with us because this is going to be our career. We don't want to give up our career, but we need to do something because it would
Yeah,
be so
exactly.
hard without that. So that preparation, I feel like, is key.
And I personally, for me, our shift schedule is more conducive for our lifestyle. We actually spend more time with our kids and our families versus a 9 to 5. So for
Sure.
us, it works out really well. We still miss out on quite a few things, the holidays and the weekends kind of thing. But I feel like we're home a lot more than
Yeah.
if we were 9 to 5.
And that is such a great trade-off, right? That is one of the
Yeah.
things, like, hey, listen, you're going to miss Christmases, you're going to miss, I've just worked at the past, I don't even know, 5 or 6 Thanksgivings in a row, the way our
Yep.
rotation works, right? And this year, I'm like, if anybody in my family listens to this, they're gonna be like, I hate you. I have to do something with my family this year. It was so much easier to just be like, I'm at the firehouse. You
Yep.
guys do whatever.
You guys
You
can
do
come
what you want to
visit.
do. Yeah, peace. I'm at the firehouse next year. Like, where's Pip?
Yep.
He's at the firehouse again. That's firehouse again. Like, this year, I'm like, God, what are we going to do? Like, we have to go. Like, I may have to cook and clean. Like, all these things that I'd rather be at the firehouse. But that trade-off versus 9 to 5, I personally have never done a 9 to 5 job in my life.
I have.
Did it suck?
Yes, very much. And I think about that too a lot. Like if I were to leave the fire service, what job would I do? I don't know what that is. I don't know what the pay would be to get me to move to that kind of schedule, and I'm not even sure if I got paid double, I'd do it. It's just the quality of life is so vastly different for me. Of course, I miss out on sleep, and I have issues with that too. But it's just it's so much easier to get through the things that we have to get through, doctor's appointments, just
Yeah.
everyday things that I don't have to do at 6 o'clock in the evening or wait till Saturday and Sunday to do it. I've got multiple days throughout the week to do anything I want, really.
Target on a Tuesday
Yeah,
at 10
yeah,
a.m. is my
exactly.
favorite place in the world to go. What are you talking about? Like, I could
Yep.
just, I'm there. Like, I even go to Walmart
Well, I go to
during
the
weeks
beach,
sometimes.
so
You
yeah,
go
I'm
to the
always
beach.
like,
The beach is
yeah,
a win too, right?
yeah,
It's
exactly.
interesting too that, like, so I did the office when I got moved into the office in an admin spot for a little while, and my wife and I actually thought it was going to be better for our family life when I did it, and shortly thereafter, maybe into like month 4, it was not better. And
No,
I've
it's
talked
it's
about it
hard.
where, like, yeah, my kids were like, we want to go to the beach tomorrow, Dad, and I'm like, we can't. Daddy has to go back. They're like, you have to go there again. Like, that's not how this works. They grew up only knowing 24/72, and when I did that, like, sure, I was home every night, but they didn't. I think they liked it less that I was home every night. You know what I mean? Like, they didn't have that night where it was just them and mom type of a thing, or the Saturday of them and mom going somewhere. It was always me.
Yeah, exactly. It's vastly different. So I think it's definitely worth that kind of schedule. Yeah,
It's really something, and I love that we can just talk about this, right? You and I can just have this conversation, and I feel like these conversations need to start happening more and more to prepare, everyone for the future. Like I said, I've been doing this almost 30 years total when it comes into like starting in the emergency services, and no one was talking about any of these things 30 years ago,
yeah,
and even 20 years ago when I started in my career department. But it's so good to talk about this and get people prepared and hope that the future is going to be better.
absolutely. Especially for our new generation coming up, it's vastly different than probably when we came up. So getting in this kind of field is a lot different than what they're probably expecting.
Sure. I mean, just look at what they again. Like I can talk about this every episode, but just the cancer rates that weren't there 20 years ago. I mean, they were there, but nobody was counting, and
Yeah.
we all thought it was so many different reasons. And now we're really trying to figure out. We're still trying to figure out what it is. But like all these things you have to do, your health screenings, your cancer screenings, like I go to 4 different screenings a year, and I'm still afraid. Like
Yeah,
I get all
absolutely.
those screenings, right? I take care of myself. I work out. I try to eat right when I can, let's say. And I'm still afraid just trying to get kind of out the door here in a couple of years of not having any of these issues.
Yeah, trying to just make it to retirement.
Yeah, I mean that's
It's
a
a
big
long
deal
ways
right
away
now.
for some people. So
Yeah, like those kids I worked with the other day. Like,
yeah.
they're like, Cap, when are you leaving? I'm like, just in a couple of years. Like, you won't even be eligible to take the promotional exam, and I'm going to be out the door, type of a thing. So, yeah,
Absolutely. Yep. And my crew's pretty young too. I have 3 guys that work with me, and combined, it's maybe a little less than 5 years combined with them.
okay. So that's like where the position I was in the other day. I think, and people say this like, oh, my department's so young. I feel like everybody has a young department
Oh,
because we're on like a
absolutely. Yeah.
hiring blitz everywhere.
Yeah.
And but I also feel like when I started, I came in with over a 4 year time, 20 people. My department just in the past 2 years has put on 30 people, so that's way younger than it was. But the old guys then were like, "This is a young department," and the same thing we're saying now.
Yep.
So what steered you before we get into your extreme lifestyle? What steered you to doing the job that it is you do?
I actually worked at a law firm a long time ago, and I was looking at going back to school for athletic training. I had done that in high school and really enjoyed it, but I never pursued it. There was a school in Virginia that offers an entry level master's program. So I already had my bachelor's, but it was in business. And so the entry level master's allows you to pretty much have a bachelor's in any field and then just kind of jump to that
Yep.
study. I couldn't make it work at the time, and at the time I was also a volunteer diver at our local aquarium. And one of the divers there, he was a volunteer EMT and was talking about the dive rescue team, and I was like, "Ooh, I'm interested in that." And so that kind of steered me into this direction. So I got the number to call, and was interested in the dive, but it was also tied to the local Virginia Beach Rescue Squad, and I wanted to volunteer kind of with both. And they offered free training, and it's nights and weekends, and so something I could do locally here, not really disrupting my current life. And you didn't have to be an EMT to do the diver side of it, but I wanted to do both. I held that number in my pocket for a long time. I was super nervous about being on an ambulance or 911. I've from what I've seen on TV shows, I don't know if I can handle that. So I held on to that number for a really long time. I finally made the phone call and took the first steps into getting into that training. I never ended up pursuing the dive side of it, but I continued to volunteer at the aquarium. So with 2 years of volunteer service, the fire department opened up hiring, and I jumped ship to apply for them, and I was able to get hired on my first try. But I did work really hard to get ready for all of that. So I was very fortunate to get on my first try. I think we had 30 spots for a couple thousand applicants. So I count myself very fortunate. And so that was 13 years ago.
That's awesome. And I love that little bit of a story too, where you're like, I don't know, I wasn't really happy and I was diving and you just had that weird way to get into it, right? Like
Yeah.
there's people that are like, oh no, I knew this is what I always wanted to do. And then I feel like we have such a great mix of people that are exactly like you and other people that are like, I was destined for this career type of a thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. It was all happenstance, and I just ended up getting steered in a particular direction that I was not expecting at all.
So in a weird connection here, the first half marathon I ran was the Virginia Beach, the Yingling Shamrock half marathon.
Oh yes, me too.
I never forget the first year I was down there, I was running and I saw something and it was like Virginia Beach Volunteer Ambulance Squad. And I'm like, wait, they have volunteer EMS in Virginia Beach? And I just kept running by it, never thought of it again until this moment that you mentioned that. But I was just like, this place is like a city. Like, how do they have volunteer EMS?
Yeah, that's where I started. I did 2 years there, and I learned a lot. And I knew even in that before the fire department. So I was an EMT basic. I knew I was like, okay, I kind of had the goal of a paramedic at that point. I was like, well, I'm going to spend 2 years as a basic, kind of work my way to the next step, which was enhanced or advanced EMT now. And then, keep jumping that way. But my 2-year mark was right when I got hired. So I ended up taking the path I wanted anyways. I became an advanced EMT because that was our minimum standard at the time. But since then, I have not pursued paramedic and actually am back down to EMT basic.
So. I did pursue paramedic, and I'm back down to an EMT basic. It was fun while it lasted, but I'm good to never work on an ambulance again. I think I've done that long enough type of a thing in my life. But again, I liked coming up that way. It just gives you a different perspective is the way that I feel about it, especially like the patient care perspective of being an EMT. And I even did some time early on as an EMT. I was always close to a hospital wherever I was an EMT. And then I went and worked at a place that was like 30 minutes from a hospital. And I thought I knew what I was doing in an ambulance until, you have a 30-minute ride.
That's a long time. We're close to all our hospitals too, so we don't have that transport time. Our transport times are maybe 10 minutes.
Yeah. That's where I'm at now, where I work as a firefighter. Even though we don't have ambulance, we do first responder EMS. And we're at the trauma center in 2 minutes. I'm like, they don't even get lines in sometimes in the time that we're already here, unless we're sitting because we're blocked in or something. So, but that was a really good experience, and it really taught me a lot. And the Shamrock Half Marathon, to go back to that real quick, that's an amazing race. It's very fun.
Oh, absolutely.
The only elevation is getting you to the boardwalk. So if you're ever you're on the East Coast and you're looking for a great half marathon, that's the one I recommend for sure.
Absolutely. It's one of the biggest races we have here. It brings in, I think, like 20,000 runners for the weekend because they do Saturday and Sunday, different distances.
I did the whole thing, whatever. I used to run a lot. I ran a lot, and that was one of the years. And the after party, it hopefully still sponsored by Yingling. It's quite good.
Yep. It's a pretty cool event, definitely.
Yeah, it was worth it. It was a lot of fun. But so you've done all kinds of things like that, but you're not a runner, as I recall from your...
Correct. I used to run. Before I got hired, I was doing a race a month for 2 years, so that's how I was getting in shape.
Wait, did you push the twins?
This was way before they were born.
Oh, okay. Because that was always disheartening when someone passed you with a stroller in a race, but then when someone passed you with a double stroller, it was just like, I suck at life.
This was a lifetime ago.
Yeah, now I'm like, high five, man. You're way better than me. I'm a slow, I'm in that 9-minute mile club these days with no problems there. But yeah, you pass me now with a double stroller, high five for you.
Yep.
Okay. Then I may not have liked you as much because I used to get really sour at people passing me with double strollers.
I can understand that feeling. Trust me. I have the same feeling on the water.
I was still running though with my kids, so I did pass people. So I kind of got back when I got my kids.
There you go.
Never the double though. I never ran with two. Thank God.
Luckily, I haven't had the need or want to run with my kids, but we'll see. Cora, my daughter, she loves running, so we'll see what she gets into, in her future. So, but yeah, this was a lifetime before them. But I have taken them out in the water with me since then, so they kind of joined me on those aspects.
So have you always been, because I know you said you were like a volunteer diver, have you always been a water person?
Yes, absolutely.
For lack of a better term.
Yeah, I grew up by the beach. When I was growing up, I had a pool growing up, and my dad and my uncles were teaching me how to scuba dive long before I could get certified. And so I was always in the water in some fashion. So as soon as I turned 16 and got my driver's license, I drove myself to get my certification. So I've been certified in that since I was 16. I volunteered at the aquarium for 10 years. I've done dives all over the world. So
like Antarctica. I mean, who goes to Antarctica to dive?
That was impulsive too. That was very impulsive.
How do you even find
stumble on that?
How do you find it? How do you did you Google it?
No, it was all happenstance.
I've seen ice diving, right? But people in Maine or in Michigan on the Great Lakes, but they're like, no, let me go to Antarctica. Let me go to the coldest place ever.
That was all happenstance. Everything I've done has just been hey, it's just been kind of thrown in front of me. I've never found it. But there was a time, so dive shops, anywhere in the country, you can go onto a dive shop's website and they'll have their list of dive trips where they're going for the whole year. So you can put your deposit down and join them. And so my local dive shop does the same thing. So I was going to Minnesota. That's where my dad's family is from. And I
It's
wanted to go
cold there.
scuba
They have
diving.
ice there. They
They
have ice
do. But this was summertime. So it's not
they
so
still
bad.
may have ice there.
Not so much, but it's still cold water. So I was looking at the local dive shop in Minnesota, and I looked at their trips, and Antarctica was on there. And I was like, whoa. I was like, man, there's no way I could do that. But I'm reading about it, and uh, I went to the dive shop in Minnesota when we got there because I wanted to do a couple of dives with them, but I think I ended up signing up for a class. And so I talked to them. They're like, hey, we offer this trip once every 10 years. And I was like, really?
They're like baiting you, right? Like
Yeah, they got me.
Yeah.
They got me good. And you have to have 50 dry suit dives. You have to have a dry suit. You have to have cold water gear, which I had zero experience. I've actually only done one dry suit dive, and that was in Iceland on a trip that we went to a couple of years back. And so Iceland. I do too. That's one of my favorite places too.
We were in the Blue Lagoon the day before 2 days before the volcano erupted, and they had to evacuate.
Recently?
Not this most recent one,
but
okay. the first last November, the first.
That would be so awesome.
Eruption. And I actually have a friend who's a big diver in Iceland, the firefighter, who was on the show. So we got to meet up with him when we were out there and see all their dive stuff.
Oh, nice.
I'm not a diver at all, but
you should become one. It's very awesome.
I honestly, so I like extreme things. I have no interest in going underwater to see what's there. I love the ocean. I love being on it. I love swimming in it. I have no interest. People are like, it's so beautiful. Come down, blah, blah, blah. No, I'm good. None.
I can understand that for sure. I have my limitations with scuba diving, especially now that I'm older, and I do have a little bit of issues with my ears now, but I don't need to go that extreme, like really deep or mixed gases or anything like that. But
I don't even want to snorkel. I don't care what I see. Like, I could see it on TV. I'm okay. Like, look, I could see it from the boat. It's just not, there's just no, and it's funny because you have people that are really into diving and they're like, no, you'll love it. You have to try it. And I'm like, I'm good. Like, I feel like it's just like saying, I just said the other day, I don't go on roller coasters anymore. Very rarely do I go on a roller coaster. It's just not for me anymore. I used to do it. Now I don't. Same with
exactly.
I want nothing to do it. Anyway, let's go back. So you had zero cold water experience and
so I was at the dive shop and they're telling me once every 10 years. I was like, So I was like, well, maybe I can start training for this and then put a deposit down. And I think they got me again because they said there was like 2 spots left. And I was like, oh. And it was a $2,000 deposit. And I did it. I ended up texting or calling Preston afterwards. I said, I did a thing. And he goes, you put a deposit down, didn't you? He knew. They got me. And so with that, so I had one dry suit dive. And so this was in 2017, July of 17, and the trip was February of 2019. And so I had one dry suit dive. I got 49 more to go. And so I ended up getting 3 or 4 more dives that weekend while I was in Minnesota, dry suit dives. And then after that, I started researching and realizing how much what I really got myself into. So I spent a lot of money on cold water gear. It's probably like $5,000 to $6,000 on a custom dry suit, 2 cold water regulators, liners inside the dry suit, everything. Not to mention,
all already like unless you need all this stuff. Like I just put a dry suit on and you go in the water. That's it.
No, it's intense. It's a lot. I learned a lot, and on top of that, you have to go diving. So I challenged myself. I didn't just go diving in Virginia. I went to Missouri. I did an underground mine diving. That's cold water diving, and that's pretty cool too. I went to Iceland specifically for a dive trip where I did 7 dives over there to test out my gear in the really cold temperatures because it was negative. I don't know. The air temperature was in the negatives and the water temperature was warmer at 32 degrees. So I learned a lot about my equipment in those conditions. Gone to Florida, I went all over diving. So I ended up getting well over 50 dives to qualify to swim or dive in Antarctica. So, but
the work just to go do the thing you wanted to do
that was part of the journey, and it's something I thought about every single day, and ended up being for 2.5 years because I had to postpone that trip because in 2018 I was pregnant with my twins. They came early. They were preemies at 28 weeks and spent almost 3 months in the NICU. And of course, recovering from, so they were born in July of 18, and that trip was February of 19. So not too far after they were
Yeah,
born.
so not going to make that one.
So I was like, man, I don't want to be pumping. I didn't know what my leave was like because I was in the hospital for 4 weeks prior to them coming. And so it was a lot going on. So I ended up talking to the company and seeing if I could postpone it to the following year, which was February 2020. So I was like, okay, cool. I have more time to train, more time to get situated with our twins, all this stuff.
You just slid it. You went in February 2020?
Yes,
You
I
literally
did.
just slid it in there then.
Literally.
Literally just slid it in
Yeah,
there.
literally. And so, like I said, it's something I thought about every day for 2.5 years. What can I do to, constantly get in the water and dive and keep up the skills? And, my goal was to kind of get to 100 dives, but I didn't quite make that. And then suddenly it was the day before I was leaving and I was packing to go. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening. And I was kind of depressed in that moment because I knew I was packing to leave tomorrow and I knew the trip would be over so fast after that. And it was.
Do you think, before we talk about diving in Antarctica, do you think though that time spent, you had a lot going on, right? You had preemies in the NICU for 3 months. You had preemies. You had twins that you had. I brought home one kid. It was hard too. It's double the work, I would say.
Yes.
Did diving make that all? I don't want to say okay, but better. Like, did that allow you to focus on something different and just kind of have that time for you that you kind of needed, or?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Something for myself, something to feel normal and, not quite losing myself into the mom role, which was really important for me. But like I said, the support system I had was really good. And that time, even when the twins came home, we took a lot of trips that year, including them, some without. And so I was able to kind of squeeze in diving on all these trips that we took with them. So it worked out really well. We got really lucky, especially with our twins' developments. No issues, no disabilities, no delays, nothing like that. So they were just small little babies on their own timeline. So
That's
that
it. We're gonna do it our
that
way,
helped
and
out a
that's
lot.
okay.
Yeah. Yep. So and then
Oh no,
going
froze.
to Antarctica, I did 9 dives out there, which
Wait, there,
can
there
you
you
hear
go.
me
Now
now?
you're back.
Okay.
Yep, now
So
you're back.
I go to the Antarctica, and I was able to complete 9 dives out there on various different spots. It was beyond amazing. It was very cold. My
What is
hands got
there?
cold.
Like, you get
Oh, there's
you
a
get off the
lot.
plane and it's just snow.
Well, actually, you go to Argentina. So you launch from Ushuaia, which is known as the end of the
Okay.
world because it's a tip of the world there. And you take a ship, and it's a 2-day journey to Antarctica from Argentina. So you have to go through the Drake's. Through the Drake, and that you never know what those conditions are. They call it the shake or lake, so you're either gonna have like flat conditions or it's gonna be crazy going over there. So I had a little bit of both, and I get very seasick, that I found out.
Oh
So
god.
yeah,
So that's like the place. Yeah. Okay.
so
Antarctica. That's so cool though. Like that you were there. I don't think I'll ever go, but I want to go. It's like one of those places that you just want to go to. I mean, I'm not going to dive, obviously, but like to think
yeah,
about that and you got to do it. And your journey to get there was even better. Like, it's not like you're like,
mm-hmm.
hey, like when you got there, like, I'm a cold water diver and blah, blah, blah. Like, no, you set a
No,
goal and you
yep,
reached it, right? So, personally, for me, goals are always important. And a lot of them I keep to myself, but I want to get this goal. You know what I mean? Like, and it seems like
absolutely,
you're that same type of person.
yeah, and that's, like I said, it's something I thought about for 2.5 years. So then suddenly it was over. I'm like, oh my gosh, what do I do now? Like, I just peaked in diving. Like, there's nothing else I could do. Now I'll still do it. I've got other dives I want to do. I don't do it as much, but as mentioned, it was during COVID. So when we arrived in Ushuaia, getting ready to get on a ship, at that time they were not allowing anybody from China onto ships, and if you had a fever. So luckily, nobody on our ship was turned away, so we all got to go. So, of course, I'm gone for, I think it was 11 days, with no communication. I had no internet, no phone, no email, or any ability to call home or figure out what was going on. Um, was kind of nice. It was nice to disconnect. Of course, I'm always worried about my kids, wondering what they were doing, how they were doing. Preston's at home dealing with 2 babies by himself. So
Poor Preston.
bye.
Love you, Preston.
Yeah, exactly.
Best wife ever, best husband ever.
Yep. And so I don't know how things are going at home. And we get back to Argentina, and we connect to the internet for the first time in 11 days. And the world had changed in that time. We actually saw a headline that said the only place in the world that COVID wasn't was Antarctica. Literally.
Going back.
Literally.
Back on the ship.
Yep. And so we get home. I got home I can't remember if it was mid-February or the end of February, but not even 5 or 7 days after I got home, everything shut down. Nobody was going on planes. Like, we literally just slipped this trip in. And I'm so grateful that I got it in, because if it didn't happen, I don't know if I'd still would have been able to do it, because, 4 or 5 years later, things aren't as easy to accommodate and get, to go through those trips. It would have
been postponed 2 years at a minimum, just because of life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The way things were it's so crazy. Like, we talk about it like it was forever ago, right? Like, it was like the Pearl Harbor times, but it was literally 4 years ago. You know what I mean? 5 years ago now. And my wife and I just talked about this the other night. I'm like, it's like forever ago in my mind that we were doing this homeschool thing with the boys, and we went back to school. So my older son is a freshman now, but that was his start of middle school. And like, we got to go to middle school, a adjusted middle school orientation. It was like the first time he got to go into a school building in however long that was.
Yeah, those are tough times.
It seems like forever ago. And I feel like, at least for me, I learned so much more in that time frame. But for you, like, that whole thing could have just been derailed. Timing difference, right?
Yeah, by like a week difference would have, derailed the whole trip and all that I'd done for 2.5 years. So I'm extremely grateful that I was able to get that done and experience that.
And it's so, again, that it's just the experience. And I tell people all the time when they're like going to Iceland, people are still amazed that my family and I went to Iceland. And I'm like, why? It's actually from the East Coast. It's easier to fly to Iceland than it is Las Vegas.
Absolutely.
And cheaper almost in one way.
A lot cheaper. It's probably like a $300 to $400 plane ticket versus California be $7.
Yeah, or for California for sure, not Vegas. But if you do LA, like, I'd rather go back to Iceland and back to just to hang out in Reykjavik. It was such an amazing city. And we took our boys, and it's their first international travel, and they were just like, is this what it's like everywhere in America? And I'm like, well, no, this place is really special.
Yes.
But it's so cool there. And it's just that thing that, like, I always tell people, take the trip, do the thing. And you definitely did the thing. You got me beat by miles.
I kind of have a funny story about Iceland too, because Preston was gone on orders for a short period of time. And I found plane tickets for Iceland. I think it was $299 round trip. And it was about midnight. I booked the tickets. He's like, what are you doing? It's like, we're going to Iceland. Also, the AC's broken. And we did not have AC for the entire summer because we booked our trip to Iceland instead. So
good for you. I mean, listen, my wife and I talked about doing it. We've been together now 21 years. And way back when as my kids say, in olden times when you guys met, I think Iceland tickets you could get for like $160. Like, we were like, let's just go. Like, one day we were literally like, we should just go tomorrow. We have a couple days off. Let's just go to Iceland. And we didn't do it at the time, which again is a regret, but it had always been a place we wanted to go. It was so cool to be able to go there.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it there.
So we've now did the dive thing. Now I'm going to just ask a quick question about work. Are you a dive rescuer at work, or do you do nothing with that?
No. So when I first got in the department, I had asked, is there a chance for our fire department to have a dive team? So our EMS and police department have the dive team.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Because just knowing our mutual friend, Kayla, like, she does.
Yes.
In my mind, she does everything that
she does.
Like, you name it. I don't want to have her on the podcast because I'm like, you make me feel so sad. Like, there's no reason to even. However,
the rescue squad or the rescue teams here, they are now have a rapid dive team. So Kayla is doing that now. That just got implemented within like 8 months ago. Gotcha. So that's just something that our rescues are doing. It's not open to really the whole department per se. I don't know how they're going to evolve that.
Is
But
that like maybe like car in the water, like your
yeah,
rapid
like
deploy
15
diver?
feet. Yeah,
Yeah.
something so you can take some time to get them out.
Yep.
But that's kind of where we're at right now. We're not doing the recovery stuff. That's still, I think, the fire department and EMS. So
Gotcha. Or police and EMS.
yes, I'm sorry. Yes, please.
That's okay. No worries. I got you.
Yeah.
As the host, I can sometimes point out some things that I'm like, oh no, you want to say police and EMS there, not
Yeah.
fire and EMS. But that's cool. I mean, maybe someday you'll get to do it again if you want
Maybe.
to.
Yeah.
Because that's a whole different aspect of our career that you could get into. I know a lot of people that do dive rescue, and it is unfortunately mostly recovery. I know up by me here, the FDNY has a humongous marine program, and this year I feel like they have made more water rescues than I feel like in my entire career. Where I'm seeing like they're putting guys on rope off bridges, engines have rescue swimmers on them now, and it's just becoming a more and more commonplace thing. We deal more with flooding, same with the FDNY, where it's just when these flash storms come, it's like now I'm supposed to be a rescue swimmer, and this is a city street, not a river. Like we don't go into our rivers, we go into our streets for things.
Yeah, it's definitely a different aspect too. For flooding.
So getting into that, your next extreme challenge is kind of a rescue thing, because stand-up paddleboarding, big long surfboards, people lifeguards use them all the time for rescues and things, but you decided to become a stand-up paddleboarder.
Yes, and that was an impulse thing too. I had a friend in Georgia. She reached out to me, and she found the crossing for cystic fibrosis, which is an 80-mile paddle from the Bahamas to Florida, and it's nonstop throughout the night. And she wanted someone to do it with her, and I was like, of course. Yeah, I'll do it. I don't have a board.
So call Shannon. I'm going to call you for anything. Like, hey,
yeah,
I want to do something crazy. Want to do it? Okay, just not running. No running.
Yeah, no running. So I was like, yeah, of course I'll do it. Blah blah. And I started looking into it, just like I did with the Antarctica. Okay, what do I need to get here? What am I getting myself into? And again, she's in Georgia. I'm in Virginia Beach. And the only unfortunate thing about that is we couldn't train together. And that would have been a really big key thing to get us both on the water and the accountability part of it. But her being so far apart, like it was going to be a little tough. But I was like, hey, we'll see what we can do here. And so I don't own paddle boards. I don't do any of that stuff. I maybe
Preston.
did. Yeah, I probably did.
Preston.
I know, right? He's used to it now. He's way used to it.
He sees the credit card alert come up, and he's like, what's she doing now?
Yeah, oh Lord. So I went to a local shop here, and I was like, hey, I need a paddleboard to train on. And I found a 9-mile ocean race in South Carolina near Folly Beach by, I think it's Hilton. I think it's near Hilton. And so I rented a board from them, heavy board. I didn't know all the different types of race boards and equipment and stuff. I was like, I'll just take a board and let's just go drive. I was leaving tomorrow to go to this race. I've never paddled a mile in my life. I was like, well, if I can paddle 9 miles, I can paddle 80. That was my thought process there.
That's the best logic I've ever heard in my life. Like, I can run a mile. I should do a marathon.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure someone else has thought it. And so I drive down to South Carolina with the board and borrowed racks. And the next morning I get up to go to the race and I have a flat tire. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I like to be early to things. So this was already stressing me out and feeling like I was going to be late. And I was trying to fix it. I couldn't get the jack out of the compartment for some reason. I couldn't figure it out. So I tried to go get some help. They couldn't figure it out either. And I ended up going in the lobby and I started messaging the race. I'm like, I need help. Can I get a ride? Can someone get my board? Can someone help me? Like, I'm going to leave my car here, see if I can get to the starting line. And a gentleman and his family walked by and he's like, hey, I'll see you at the race. Cause I had my board sitting next to me in the lobby. And I was like, well, if I get there, I hope I can. He's like, what do you mean? And I told him, he goes, we're taking your board on my truck, and became fast friends with his family.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was an adventure.
And you had supporters right from the get-go now, because now you have a family to support you as well, right? Like
absolutely. They were amazing. And so we did a beach launch. It was a 9-mile race. The first half of it, 4.5 miles, was to a pier and back. And then the second half was like an intercoastal. But from what I could hear from people talking, that the conditions in the intercoastal were pretty rough. The ocean was choppy. I was very intimidated because I'm in all my rental gear. I've never done this before, and I see like professional athletes, uniforms, sponsorships. I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I getting myself into here? And so,
I just thought stand up paddleboarding was like I inflated the paddleboard and I went out on it with a beer and I had a blast. I mean,
I
I
mean, you
knew there were
can.
races. I knew there were races and things, right?
No,
My
it's
buddy does
intense.
one around Cape May and he does
Yeah.
some endurance stuff like that. But like you're now explaining to me like there's sponsorship and there's pros and there's things I never knew existed.
I didn't know that either. And I was like, whoa. And so the gun goes off when we start, and I cannot get past the waves. I keep getting thrown back to shore. I can't get past it. And I was like, well, I'm not winning this thing. So I'm a better swimmer than I'm a paddler at this time. So I decided to swim with everything in tow. So I swim past the break, get back on my board. It's very choppy still,
Is
even
that
past
legal?
the break.
I guess
Probably
that's
not,
legal.
but I was just, this is only for me to see what I could do. So
Gotcha.
there's no, if I'm disqualified, it's whatever. So I finally get past the break and I have an opportunity to stand up. And I kid you not, the very first big wave came at me, hit me down, or knocked me off my board, and I lose everything. I lost my water bottle, my shoes, my GoPro, my headband. I lost it all. And I was like, okay, well, I guess we're doing this. So I get back on my board, losing all of this stuff. And I end up having to paddle on my knees, which was very uncomfortable. My quads were on fire. And I was like, the whole time paddling 4.5 miles, I'm like, I'm not doing 80. This is insane. There's no way I could ever do 80. And you had mentioned strollers passing you. Well, I had kids passing me, standing up, sprinting. I'm like, how are they doing this? So, a little piece of humble pie coming at me here. And so I finished the 4.5 miles. And I was like, I'm not doing the second half. And so, I was like, hey, I did 4.5 miles. And come to find out that I think almost 50 or 75% of people who were doing the 9 miles did not finish either. So I was like, oh, it makes me feel a little better. I'm not, that terrible at it. And so I'm on my way home, driving back to Virginia Beach, and I called my friend Mel, and I was like, girl, this ain't happening. You're not doing this. And I explained all that to her. But I was like, okay, well, I'm getting home and I'm thinking about it some more. I'm not letting it go. And I was like, well, how can I do this? Maybe a hybrid, standing up, sitting down. Does this exist? So a hybrid kayak and sup board do exist, but they're not long enough. They're like 10 feet. You need a 14-foot board. They say you can do 12 and a half, but 14 is really where you want to be at to have that stability.
Okay. I was going to say, is that just a balance thing? Like, but this,
yeah.
I gotcha.
And then, of course, the width of the board too matters. And I combed through the internet trying to find something I could take on the ocean to sit and stand. And I couldn't really find what I was looking for, and I kind of let it go for a little while. And then, but I was still thinking about it. And Preston was deploying at that time too. So this is around 2021. And Kayla and I knew of each other in the department, but weren't friends at the time. And so I happened to see her post on Instagram that she was training for the crossing. And I was like, this is my chance. Someone else in Virginia Beach, just as crazy as I am, someone to train with, to be on the water together for safety reasons, because I didn't really know the waters that well in that kind of aspect of paddling. And I was like, hey, you want to do this together? And she's like, absolutely, yes, I need somebody, blah, blah. And we became really fast friends after that. So
like, hello, certified badass.
yeah.
And let me pick the most badass person I can find to do this.
Exactly. And it worked out in my favor. So and then I finally got a board. I ordered a board, but it was on backward. So I ended up buying an inflatable board from Boat that was similar dimensions, so I can at least have kind of the same dimensions. And my very first paddle was 2 miles. And that's how it started, 2 miles. And then I gradually increased it. I did 2 sunrise to sunset paddles because we're going to be on the board for 14 to 17 hours. So I needed to see how I would feel after 12 hours. I didn't care about the distance because I can't replicate the Gulf Stream speed. Sure. So I was like, if I can stand up and do this for 12, 13 hours, I would feel pretty good about that. And I did that twice. And then I also did a 48-hour paddle, which mimics David Goggins' 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours, and that's his running challenge. So Kayla and I did that paddling, and it was so much fun. Hard, but it was so much fun. So
I
yeah.
mean, that's a long time, right? Even I've seen the running challenge and I've thought about it. I've even seen the 24-hour ones, and I'm like, should I do that? I'm like, maybe I should do that. Maybe I should do that. But
Well,
like,
if you do it with somebody. It's way more fun to do it with somebody. The
yeah,
things that happen, it's a very unique experience, and it's hard, but it's cool.
and to have that person there is such a like positive attitude for it, right? Like when you're down, they're up. When they're down, you're up. When you're
Uh,
both down, you're both down. You
yep.
know, like I had great running training partners, and I think that's what kept me running so long. And we ran a lot of races together. I ran my marathon by myself, but like that was kind of the thing that keeps you going. So it's something that I like to tell people, like just that one training partner is
Yep.
key. And clearly you and Kayla had that on the water where I don't want to be on the water at night either. I'm like afraid for you or her when I've seen her out there. Like it's just
Oh,
not fun.
absolutely. And that for us, that was a big safety issue too. So in that first year that we did it, one of our sessions at night, I think it was the 4 a.m. paddle, and I have a picture of our tracking. But we got encroached on some really thick fog, and so we had started off like a bigger circle, and you can see the circles getting smaller and smaller as this fog is catching us, and so we're not comfortable going out at night, and there's boat traffic that can go through where we were. Um, and so we ended up calling that particular paddle, I think, at 3 miles. And so the next month, the next session, I think, was 8 a.m. The fog was still really thick, and so we couldn't go out. I think we delayed that session by like an hour or so and had to do 5 miles. So we made up our miles, but we very much take into consideration our safety factors because there's a lot that can go wrong. So
Oh yeah, there's a lot that could
yeah,
go wrong.
yeah.
Like
But it's an amazing experience, like the things that happen at night, and what even just the animal life alone, the things that I've experienced have been pretty epic. And so that's why it's a little bit more fun than running for me, because you never know what's going to happen, but I just like being on the water. So
and I think that's it, right? And I think that's kind of what this whole thing is about, at least following you a little bit now on social media. It's all about that experience, right? And making those memories. My wife and I talk about that with our kids, like making memories for the kids. And even my kids remember me doing some things like races when they were younger, and then when I was doing a triathlon and things. But for them too, like the memories that I have with them watching, oh gosh, I can't say this, watching them do their thing, right? And making those memories. And now your kids are just going to get to that age where they're going to start to watch you doing your things and
yeah,
hopefully be able to do it
absolutely.
with you.
Yeah, and they've been on the paddleboard with me. Cora is definitely my more adventurer one. She's definitely a water girl like me. She's like, "Can we go further and deeper?" And I bring Avery out. And he's like, "Can we go home?" So I'm like, "No, we're not going home. Well, this is a lot of effort to do all this." So, but they do like the water, and they're always asking, "Are you going paddleboarding?" I was like, "Yes, I'm going paddleboarding," or "No," or whatever. So they know all about it. They've seen me do one race, which I thought was really cool. So it'll be fun to see them grow up by the water, in the water. They love the water too, so it's gonna be pretty awesome, I think, in the next couple of years.
I feel like it's always the best when you're at a race or at an event and there's like little kids there cheering on their mom or their dad, because again, you're their mom or their dad. Like you're
Yeah,
automatically kind of like the superhero, but then they see you doing something. I mean, you could be in last place and these kids are
yeah.
like, "Whoa!" Like
I
I
don't
saw that
know.
a lot in CrossFit, like where like
Yeah,
your mom or dad could be in last place. You don't care. They're your mom or dad and they're out there and it looks cool what they're doing. Like it may as well be, the World Series or the CrossFit games or whatever you want to say. And that's
absolutely.
such a good experience for them to see the challenge too, and to see you train, right? To know that like mom or dad is going out and I have to put in all this training just for this specific thing that I'm doing.
Yep, and setting that example for them too, it's pretty big. So I'm not setting the example of sitting on the couch all the time or whatever, but so hopefully they'll be more. I hope they're going to be really big into nature. I love nature stuff, so like all my bucket list stuff is seeing certain things that nature provides for us. So hopefully that they will be somewhat the same.
That's awesome. So how many times have you done the crossing?
So I have paddled 80 miles twice. My
Okay.
first year, I had a catastrophic board damage, or damage to my board happen. And also at the same time, my boat captain had pulled out of the race. All this happened an hour before we were supposed to launch. So it was extremely devastating. It took a lot to get over that, but I learned a lot from that. It gave me a lot of fuel for the next year. So that was in 2021.
Okay.
And my the guy who makes my board, his name is Heath Bogart. He kept my board in Florida and repaired it for me. So I drove back to Virginia, and then 2 months later, I drove back down in August and picked up my board, and I found a boat captain willing to do a mock 80 miles with me. So I was like, I trained for 80 miles. I want to do 80 miles. I don't care how I do it. And so he was like, he's done the crossing 4 or 5 times already. And he was like, yes, this is awesome. And so we came up with a plan, me and another paddler, because we both missed out on the crossing completely. And we launched from Miami to West Palm, and we completed our 80 miles. And so that took us just under 14 hours to complete. And so we got to do that and learned a lot on that adventure. I could get into the nutrition part of all that, but I can just tell you, I had my plan. My plan did not go to plan. So we survived it, but it was awesome. And so I was excited at that point, because at the end of that month, that's when the signups for the 2022 crossing were going to happen. So I was ready to sign up and get that motivation back to go try again. So in 2022, I completed in 14 hours and had totally different conditions, had a totally different nutrition plan. That didn't pan out either. So again, you survive it. You just never know what the ocean's going to do and how you're going to react to it. So I can get into details of all the conditions and things I experienced with both of those, but it was amazing. It was awesome. It was hard. I achieved my goals and more in that particular crossing. I placed second for the solo females, third overall, and then they have a first responder award, which I got first place for that as well. So
nice. I was going to ask, what's a good time for 80 miles on a paddleboard? Like obviously 14 hours is a good time, right? I
would say so the record is 12 hours, but it's also based on the conditions. So
you're right off the record. Like let's not kid here. This isn't like
it's not hard or not far.
Seconds in a 5K, 80 miles. It's hours, and ocean conditions matter and things. So good for you. Like that's good Lord. Yeah, it would take me like 20 hours, like easily.
And like I said, it depends on the conditions and stuff. So that following year, 2023, I was like, my goal is to beat the record. I'm going to do it again. I want to beat the record. Unfortunately, I had a back injury, and that I'm actually still dealing with today. So I pulled out of the crossing and ended up being a crew member, or I was going to do a relay and then ended up being a crew member. And
why not?
Yeah, I still wanted to be a part of it. I still wanted to. The Crossing is an amazing organization. The people are awesome, and to miss out on everything that they do it's kind of hard. And so, 2020
is great too. I'm gonna just interrupt you because this is a good time. But I love it. I even wrote it down. Like, come for the challenge and stay for the cause.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like that to me resonates with like anything you can do, right? Where you should be doing it for a cause that you are. But for them to just say that, like. I love it. I absolutely love it. And again, it said in what you wrote to me was you learned a lot about cystic fibrosis, right?
Yep. I didn't know what it was. I don't know anybody with it. I'd never heard of it. I may have heard of it, but it never resonated with me. Sure. And, but since then, I've got several CF warriors that I actually paddle for. A couple of them have passed away from CF, and a few of them live in Virginia Beach. And so then they're local to us. I've become friends with their families. It's just been an amazing experience. And bringing awareness and advocating for CF has been something I never thought I'd be doing, to be honest. And I've been doing it now for like 4 years. So
it's so great when I learn of people that kind of like, I don't want to say this, but like stumble upon a charity like that, right? Where you're like, I've really heard of this and it was something I wanted to do. And your story to get there has been amazing. And now you're like, I'm a champion for CF awareness. And doing these things. And that's actually how we met, because this month is your soap this month. I don't want to mess this up. I meant to ask you before, but with Flame Decon.
Yes. So I partner with Flame Decon, and I was blown away actually when Tara messaged me back saying, yes, we want to help you. And she was trying to figure out how to do that. And normally I'm trying to get monetary donations to help with fundraising and expenses and stuff like that. And she's like, what if we have a bar of soap for you with your picture on it, a scent for you, and you can get the proceeds from those sales? And I was like, oh my gosh, it's amazing. I never even dreamed of any of that happening.
And you're helping
And
two causes in one, in a way, right? Because you're keeping
yes,
carcinogens off people like me and your coworkers, and
yes,
you're able to donate to cystic fibrosis. So it's like double win right there, right?
it's definitely a double win. I love Flame products. I use them every day. Our department uses that as part of our decon procedures post any fires. So that is a part of our requirement when we are, deconning and cleaning up after fires and stuff. So it's really awesome that our department is so
So
on
written
board with her
policy.
company.
Love it.
Yeah.
Wash
And
with this soap, written policy, because firemen need a written policy to do
exactly.
everything. Like
And
this procedure.
they hand us the packets of soap after every fire. And so it's pretty awesome. And one of the things, I just saw an email from Tara coming out for a new product, the laundry. I think she's working on laundry soap. And I'm like, oh,
Yep.
I'm so excited about that. So to have that partnership and with the fire department and CF, it's just an awesome experience. And then of course that's how we, started talking, and now I'm here talking with you.
There, it's all how these things happen. So if you're listening now, go to Flame Decon and buy what is the scent? I'm really bad.
It's actually called 80 miles beach to beach. That's the scent.
Nice.
Yeah.
Is it have like I'm from New Jersey, so is it like a tanning oil scent to it maybe?
No, but it does have that beachy smell. It's not like sunscreen or anything like that. It smells really good.
We
I wish I had a
tanning oil in New Jersey. It's not sunscreen. Come on.
Yeah.
Sure. We just
That's true. Your sun's not as intense.
Right? What? My sun is intense as everything. I just want to bake it all in so I get this nice golden bronze. My summer tan is leaving now.
I know, mine is too. I'm so sad.
And to like where you are, your weather doesn't exactly mimic mine here on the East Coast, but like, listen, folks who live in other parts of the country, Virginia Beach isn't sunny and 90 year round. I mean,
no,
we're going to dip down into the 30s and it may snow there occasionally.
The snow is a little iffy, but it gets very cold. And I do train throughout the winter. I am in the ocean in the wintertime. In fact, a couple of years ago, I was breaking through ice with my paddleboard, so that was pretty cool. I wasn't expecting that.
No wonder why you damage boards.
Well, I haven't damaged one since, but
I got hit by an iceberg when I was training. It's a catastrophic gear failure. Like,
yeah, so I gotta learn my equipment. I gotta see what the limitations are.
Oh no, it's a freeze. We're almost there. Oh no. This could be a long freeze before we get to the side.
I think we're back.
Let's see what happens. Oh, now you're back. Here we go.
Yeah.
Usually editing fixes the freezes. Sometimes it doesn't, but it happens. But I was making fun of you getting hit by icebergs. So
that's okay. But this will be my second true attempt at the 80 miles from Bahamas to Florida. So.
And when is it?
June 22nd. 2025.
So folks, It's September now because this is coming out next week. So we have many months that we can support Shannon in her crossing, and tell the folks, we know you can buy Flame Decon soap, but other ways that they can support you, follow you if they're interested in maybe training with you or wanting to do something wild. Like, I'm not going to paddleboard 80 miles with you. If someone else wants to volunteer in my stead, I'll help support you.
Yeah, definitely the Flame Decon soap will help. I also have a tax-deductible link that you can donate directly to the foundation if you want to go that route. And I can do any product donations or other monetary donations that will help me with expenses. One of the requirements is we raise $2,000 for each participant. And then, of course, we can raise more than that if we can. And then and if you're not in the donation mindset, that's fine. Any kind of sharing or commenting, posting, liking, any of those things can help spread the awareness of CF and the crossing and whatnot. And then what I'm doing training, I typically document all my training. I'll say that the miles I'm doing and how long and certain things like that. So you can follow along and have fun and watch me, paddle 20 miles for 6 hours. I am local to Virginia Beach, so I've taken many people out on the water, and a lot of people ask me for recommendations on where to go if you're a beginner. So I love talking paddling equipment and stuff like that. So I'm more than happy to answer anybody's questions regarding those things. And even your questions of how do I get into something like this? And there are races all over the country, even in Jersey, New York, up and down the East Coast. I haven't made it up that far to do races, but I've gone to Tennessee and Florida, Georgia, obviously the Bahamas, and throughout Virginia. So they're all over the place, and they have fun paddles that are 2 miles. So the beginners, you don't have to be a competitive person. And, I'm not a pro. I have won some races, or usually on the smaller scale, but when I'm actually against the real pros, I don't really stand a chance. So, but I have fun with
But that's
it.
okay.
Yeah, and I have my own goals.
Yeah.
So I'm doing it for myself because I love it. And like we've mentioned before, I don't run, so this is my cardio. So when I run, you run 10 miles, I paddle 10 miles. It takes me 2.5 hours to paddle 10 miles, and I burn probably over 1,000 calories, so it's a very good workout.
And so that nutrition strategy is really important on an 80-mile crossing. And we're not going to get into it because I've kept you over your hour already with this amazing story. But I know I have some folks in the nutrition world that I'm going to reach out to be like, you need to support her because she clearly is messing up her nutrition strategy.
Yes. I would love any insight. I've tried who knows how many things, and I test them out on my long paddles and the 48-hour paddle, because any racer knows you don't want to try anything new on race day. So, but like I said, my plans haven't gone to plan yet. So I've survived them, but I could use the advantage.
Let's get you to a better level. Like survived can't be the goal, right? Like
yeah.
For nutrition, like we got to work on that one. But I love the way you explained it all, and you told your story so well. Like you need to be on more podcasts too.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
This has been so much fun this hour. Just where can folks follow you and learn about your journey?
So I'm on Instagram mainly, and so my Instagram is at Shannon Lockhart _. So it should be pretty easy.
And she'll be tagged in all the things on the bottom, and I'll have that in there so you could follow Shannon. And I'm kind of proud of myself because one of my, not that I have dyslexia, but I probably have dyslexia. I've never been diagnosed with dyslexia, but I have it knowing my son has it and going through his process. But Shannon, I read as Sharon for some reason a lot.
People do that all the time.
Totally one of those words where and I tried so hard that I'm like, I'm not going to call her Sharon, but I'm going to say Shannon when I look. And even if you may catch me, if you go back and watch it, stopping to make sure I do it right. Because it's totally a name that I don't know. I don't know why.
Don't worry. It happens all the time. In fact, my college field hockey coach, it was a long running joke. She would just call me Sharon exclusively. So
and just go. Yeah.
Yep.
See, it's this weird thing. Maybe it's not that. I don't know what it is, but I just read it that way. And I'm like, I can do this, Pip. You can make it to the end. So let's get into the size up 10 here with you, if you don't mind. 10 quick questions, and then I'll let you get back to your kidless day, because I have to go do an extreme workout. I'm running up a hill for an hour and walking back down it.
Nice.
So about 100 yards, sprint up it, walk back down it, turn around, do it again for an hour.
Well, that's more than what I'm going to be doing today. So
that's okay. You got me. You have me beat by miles on the extreme line. So we don't have to it's not a measuring contest here. You win. I give up. All right. What's your choice here? Beach or mountains?
Ooh, beach.
Always, right?
Yeah.
Night out or night in?
Ooh, I could do both.
Okay.
Equally both.
At that time, I like it.
Yeah.
How about a movie everyone has to see?
Oh gosh. I think My Cousin Vinny is probably up there.
Oh my God. Did you just become best friends? You talk about a New Jersey firehouse movie. If it's on, it's on.
Yeah.
It'll be on the PA system, Channel 43, My Cousin Vinny, and it's just on.
We love it. Yeah.
Very good. My son is an aspiring actor, and he's learning some Joe Pesci court scenes.
Nice.
He has some of the monologues down, with the Jersey accent and everything. So
good. You have to.
My Cousin Vinny. I love it. Cross country road trip. Who is your celebrity co-pilot? They can be living or dead too.
Oh gosh. I think Sandra Bullock.
Oh, I like it. I kind of like a Thelma and Louise theme there too, right?
Yeah. Right off the top of my head, I've always loved her. So, I go with her.
Good. That's a good one. And no one's picked that person before.
Nice.
So there you go. Sandra Bullock, first time here. Do you make your bed every day, or does Preston?
Neither.
Oh, wow. Very unmilitary minded. You just threw him under the bus.
However, when I, doing my crazy cleaning stuff, and I, I'll make the bed because it makes me feel better, but it's not an everyday thing. No.
See, it makes me feel better every day. Like I go right with the book. Like I just throw the cover over and I'm so happy. I don't know why.
Well, I usually leave at 4 a.m, so he's still in bed. I'm not dealing with the bed while he's, trying to sleep. So I'm
So
usually
we'll blame
gone.
Preston then.
Yeah.
Preston, make your bed every day. How about a book that everyone should read?
So probably my favorite series. It's actually more like a teen book series. It was written by a young author many years ago. It's the Aragon series is my favorite. And so I'm rereading it right now because he actually came out with another book that I just found out. So I'm kind of excited rereading that.
Cool.
So.
All right. New for me, but I have a teen, so he may be reading it shortly. So
Yeah.
not heard of that one, but I love it. And I love that you owned it too. Like it's this like
Yeah.
Like I read every Harry Potter twice. Like
I have not ever read Harry Potter, so
they're so good. They're so good. But it was better. So when I started reading them was before the movies. So it was a whole different world of reading and then discovering it that way. So.
Aragon is a fantasy series as well about dragons. So it's pretty cool.
So my younger son, oh God, what did he just read? My younger son is all about dragons and fantasy. And
he'll love these books.
Yeah, it's not Aragon. It's like Wings of something maybe, or maybe it is Aragon. I don't know. They're somewhere floating around here. But dragonesses. I know all about dragonesses, allegedly. All right, a couple more questions. Which one are you taking, highways or back roads?
Oh, so I know my husband will take a back road anytime. I'll probably take a highway because I want to get somewhere faster.
That's it. That's what it's all about.
Or I'll take the back roads to detour away from accidents and stuff.
For sure. I don't know. This may not be like a good question for you, but how about a bucket list place to visit that you haven't visited yet?
Okay, I do have one. So Croatia is where I want to go. And because they have an underwater winery in which you can dive for a bottle of wine. And so I was supposed to do it for my 40th birthday. It's been delayed. So hopefully when Preston gets back from deployment, we will be going there. So that is number one on the list when he gets back is to go there. So
can you go there and not have to dive and someone will still give you the wine?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because Croatia is on my list too.
But it's the experience.
No, I'm good. You need to bring me back the wine. And
I'll dive for you and get you a bottle.
100%. I'm in. I'll drink it for you. No problem. I want to go to Croatia, though, for all the Game of Thrones places.
Same.
Like, I'm so on the shame stairs. Like, I can't wait. Cool. All right, we're in. We'll book that trip together then, and you can get the bottle of wine, and
all right,
will gladly drink it for you guys. You can get as many as you want.
That sounds good to me.
Which one do you prefer? Is it football or football?
Football.
Nice. I always like a good football fan. All right, last question, and I don't even know if this counts for you really, because it's I don't know. You just seem like you've always been the best to go around. But the best advice you could give to your younger self?
Embrace the suck.
Oh my God. I have a great name for this podcast and then you just killed me with that because I love it, right? Because you're out there, you're paddling and it sucks, right? There's just no way.
So one of the things with embracing the suck, and when I was attempting my first crossing, Kayla wasn't able to go, but her advice to me was, 1, embrace the suck, and 2, don't wish for it to be over, because once it is, you're going to wish you were back there. So I keep that mentality all the time. And, and I miss it. Like, who wants to torture themselves with 80 miles? But I keep coming back to do it. So yeah, embrace the suck.
I love it. Shannon, not Sharon, this has been a great hour. I'm so happy we did this. I'm so happy Tara decided to partner up with you because that's kind of how I found you in there. So I can't wait to follow you along, and any way I can help out, I'd love to.
I appreciate it. And just follow the journey and have fun with it. And I love any support I can get. And anyone who wants to reach out, I'm happy to answer any questions.
And if I'm in the Virginia Beach area, I'll come out and paddle with you. But
absolutely.
I want to have my big hat on and on the paddleboard.
That's okay. We can do that too. I've done that.
It's definitely not a sport for me. But listen, I can't thank you enough again. I can't thank everybody for listening. I'm going to give another shout out to Flame. Flame supported the Size Up podcast. They've supported National Fire Radio. Tara's just awesome. We talk like every month or so, every other month or so. We're probably due for a catch up, so I owe her that. But if you're out there, check out Flame Decon. So she's really doing a great thing with a lot of different not-for-profits, a lot of different charities, and the soap works. Like I just can't not say that enough. Like when I first started using it, my wife was like, "You don't smell like fire anymore after a job. Like you don't
Absolutely.
smell like the firehouse even because it just has that smell to it, right?" That, and then you learn. I knew Tara before the testing, and I'm like, "No, I believe you." And then she actually did the testing with Bobby and his crew, and I'm like, "Oh my God, you're 100% right." So
Yeah, we're pretty
stick with
lucky that
Flame.
she came up with that, and has come up with that blend of chemicals, or I don't know how she's done the charcoal, whatever, but we are very lucky that she has done that for the fire service in general.
It's interesting too, and again, I'm keeping you longer and just babbling, but I was actually using charcoal soap before I met her. And then I don't even know how our paths crossed the first time, but I'm like, no, I use charcoal soap, and she's like, well, you have to use mine because of
Yeah.
whatever sciencey stuff is science. I don't do
Yep.
science, but total game changer for how you smell and removing carcinogens that we're exposed to every time we go to work, essentially. So huge shout out to Tara. Huge shout out to everybody for listening again. I'm Pip. This is the Size Up by National Fire Radio, and what you do off the job matters.
National Fire Radio.